If you're in sales and you don't understand your numbers, you're not in control. In this video, I'm going to break down every core sales metric that actually matters, what they mean, what good looks like, and how to use them to coach, scale, and actually make decisions that are based on data. Now, this is the same stuff I use across multiple 7- and 8-figure sales teams every single day. So let's break it down metric by metric, starting at the top and then working our way down. All right, cool. Just for some quick context and background, I've taken teams from 0 to 215K a month organic in the first 30 days, taken teams organically at 85K a month to paid traffic at over 600K a month. I've generated $30 million US online through sales management. I've taken reps from 20 to 50K a month, 30 to 60K a month, and 35 to 53K a month through the very same systems that I use to ramp and manage sales teams. Cool. I simply say that because that should be enough background information for you to make an informed decision on whether or not you can trust the information in this document. So let's get into it. Now, first and foremost, the core principle is that data will always beat heuristics or biases. Because if you don't understand your sales data, you're essentially guessing off those biases. And what this document will do is outline the 80-20 of scaling with sales data, what every metric means, and what good actually looks like for you, so you can identify the fixes when that data is off. So what you want to do is always look at enough data, i.e. 1 to 4 week trends, not small data sets, because this will help you negate falling into the law of small numbers, right? Which is essentially a simple example would be if you ramp a new closer and they've taken their first 4 calls, they've closed in 2 out of those 4 calls. Whilst that might be a promising sign, obviously it looks like they're a 50% closer when after those next 6 calls and you take them to their first 10 calls, they could easily not make any of those into sales. And then you're looking at very different data, right? When you are making a change, you want to make one change per metric, or think of it as per one problem set. And everything else stays constant. That way you know the variable that you just changed is actually the contributing reason to why the data improved or got worse. So you want to be able to decide to keep or SOP that change or kill that change and then use a different change every single week. You also want to make sure that you have proof or essentially it didn't happen. So you want to log the before and the after time frame, right? Before you implemented that change and then after, and the exact method and SOP, and then put that in a test log and a tracker, which I'll provide you a template at the end of this video. Cool. Now, as far as the map, you want to plan top down. So from SDR data all the way down to essentially closing data in simple terms, but you want to fix bottom up. The top tells you where you're going and the bottom tells you what you want to do today. So if we think of it, the North Star, top down, profit to revenue to cash collected per book call, which we'll get into. As far as the drivers or what moves cash collected per book call is your show rate percentage, your scheduled to close percentage, so your book to call to close percentage, times your AOV, and then also your routing quality or where you put leads into which rep's calendar. Cool. As far as gates or capacity, you want to have your slot utilization somewhere in the region of 80 to 90% with a 10 to 20% buffer so that salespeople can conduct admin, follow-up, and what have you. Now, the fix order, think of it as a bottom-up waterfall. So you're going from cash up to close to show, and then up to the pipeline or the SDR, and then up to capacity, right? And your operations. So work backwards from the cash collected per book call that you need, and then pull the lowest driver that's actually off. And as I said before, fix one lever every single week, or at least in enough data that you have certainty that the change, you can actually rely on it. Cool. As far as cash, you want to fix first if collections are weak. So as far as your cash metrics, your AOV and your percentage of total contract value collected and your cash collected per book call. So as you can see here, I've put QC, which is quality control. You want to quality control your price, your terms, and the consistency of it, the routing quality, your deposit, and your financing clarity. The way to fix that is to route the best leads to the best closers and protect the top calendars. You want to make sure you have a pre-close summary, so problem, goal, fit, and terms to reduce surprises for the closers, and then use clean financing and deposits to hold AOV and collection at scale. Now, in terms of cash collected per book call or the golden efficiency metric, to lift that, obviously you want to improve your show rate percentage, improve your schedule to close rate percentage, your AOV, and then your routing quality. And the routing quality is probably the 80-20 that most sales teams can implement to improve that overnight. You want to improve one driver at a time and then measure your cash collected per book call weekly. Now, in terms of all your close metrics of converting shows into cash, your offer percentage with your goal should be at least 80%. So your offer rate, 8 out of 10 times, your closers should be making an offer or presenting the program. Anything less than that, we can get into the contributing reasons. All right. In terms of quality control, over disqualifying, not offering the prospect, or just getting a weak in principle agreement to change is going to cause that to be less than 80%. To fix that, you want to make sure that you do a triage recap to advisor call flow so the setter closer handoff is strong, and then present every single time, essentially, regardless of if they've watched the pre-call assets. It doesn't really matter. It only takes one good sales rep to prove that the rest of the team doesn't need to disqualify the prospect just because they didn't watch the VSL. You want to make sure you coach one behavior at a time, though. Now, in terms specifically of close percentage, like of shows and schedule to close, the quality control is process adherence and then finding where objection handling stalls, whether it's logistics or belief, right? And to fix that, you want to isolate one objection at a time and then insert, when I say matched proof before the sticking point, is to ideally, as I said, pitch regardless, but it should be part of your process that your closers and your setters are delivering matched sales assets, like matched testimonials or objection handling videos to the prospect before they even show up to the call. If it does come down to it and you can't close the prospect, you want to make sure you install BAMFAM into your sales team, which is book a meeting from a meeting. So there's no open loops and the salespeople are just like neatly following up. Right? You want to get that booked in the calendar on the call and get conditions of satisfaction, which I've talked about in other videos. Now, in terms of show rate, making more people show up, it all starts at your pre-call system. And these are the assets and actions that lift the show rate. In terms of your thank you page, after the booking, you want to have a 2-minute what's next, which is the logistical video, an 8 to 10 minute mechanism explainer video, which clearly outlines why your method is the superior way to achieve the outcome the prospect is looking for. And then have a series of 1 to 3 minute objection handling videos that you know are the main objections that the prospects would otherwise give throughout the call or especially after the presentation, right? You want to make sure that you tailor and send, as I said, to the prospects those videos and then resend them if they weren't consumed. And this is all coming down to a clean setter to closer handoff and having a high degree of touch points with the prospect before they show up to the call. You want to make sure you do, again, this is all part of it, but confirm in 10 minutes or a 2 to 3 minute call, which is like a concierge call, just to reconfirm, or if the option is there, to pull the booking forward earlier in the day if a sooner time is appropriate. As I mentioned, you want to send targeted proof, so one case study that matches the prospect situation, not just the full kit, because they won't watch any of it. If you just send 1 to 2 or 20% of that thank you page to the prospect, they'll actually watch that as opposed to watching none of it when you send them just good luck, go through the page, right? In terms of the reminder stack, you want to have your 24, 12, and 3 hours text messages and emails, and then manual text messages, whether it's in a WhatsApp group, an Instagram group chat with the closer and the setter, or even the founder, depending on how much you can handle that at scale. You want to make sure you do that. And then send morning of text, just making sure that you have human to human connection with the prospect before the call. Now, in terms of booking window, this can vary. I manage teams that have their booking window out to like 8 days and they still have a 70-80% show rate. It really depends on your account. But as a general rule, you really don't want to have it any more open on the date range on your calendar software than 72 hours, and then offer to pull the bookings forward to free up the back end of the calendar. This is just going to ensure that you don't clog the calendar up, potentially treating every lead the same, where you could have a grade 4 lead or a higher intent lead or a higher qualified lead only being able to pick from the back end of your calendar because it's being filled up with lower qualified leads on the front end. So you just want to make sure that you triage your calendar appropriately. So what you want to track is the thank you watch time percentage, whether it's Vitalytics or whatever you do to track the thank you page video assets. The objection clip videos as well, just to make sure people are actually watching them, and then getting your salespeople to actually ask if it comes up, if they got the chance to watch that, just to make sure that you can either tailor the calls in future or just see are the prospects actually watching these videos. You want to make sure you actually track the confirm in 10-minute pickup time. So if once the call is booked, you have a salesperson call the newly booked prospect in, you want to track the pickup rate for that, obviously separate to if you have a phone setting team, what their pickup rate is. You also want to track your pull forward rate, your show percentage by watch status, right, whether they watched or not, and then the cancel versus reschedule versus no-show. So you don't want to lump that in. Essentially what that means is if you are just tracking your no-show based on all of these metrics, they all happen for different reasons. So when you try to apply a fix, it's not going to work, at least across 2 out of the 3 reasons, right? It's very different if someone cancels as opposed to if someone reschedules, as opposed to if someone no-shows. So as it pertains to fixing it, if we're trying to fix something, we need to know what we're trying to fix. And if it's all lumped in, you're not going to have much success, right? The simple decision rules is if they watched over 50% of those videos at scale, then you don't need to resend the mechanism. Just send one targeted proof, right? One targeted testimonial, and then just run the reminder text messages we talked about. If they didn't watch and it's 24 hours, closer than 24 hours to the call, you want to resend the mechanism once with intent and one proof. If it's the same day or less than a 6 to 8 hour gap, you want to skip the resends, just do the confirm in 10 and the manual reminders. If there was any reply from the prospect, either they picked up in 10 or from the text messages, you want to offer a sooner time and pull the call forward. This is ultimately going to free up your calendar, allow higher intent leads, especially you want to triage this. So with your higher intent leads, you want to offer the earlier times, pull that forward, free up the back end of your calendar, and then you can start pulling money forward, which is what it's all about. In terms of the closer show rate, you want to stabilize that at least at 70%. And the fix for it is keeping that date range on the calendar closer than 72 hours, unless you've seen historically that you can open it up further and not hurt the show rate. Of course, the confirm in 10 call or text message, pulling forward automated and manual reminders. And then a big one, which I'm seeing more and more, is reputation management. So as long as you're getting good results, you have good reviews, and you have proof of it, this shouldn't be a problem. But trying to conduct additive measures like nickel and diming new SMS copy or changing the structure of the thank you page, ultimately the prospects aren't stupid. If you have bad results, you need to manage that, fix the back end, and then you're not going to have a problem with your show rate. But this becomes something very hard to do and just put additive measures around if you don't have good results with your service. Cool. In terms of SDR show percentage, so you're tracking the show up to the sales call individually based on the SDR. You want to look at, obviously this is going to pertain across all the setters, but the automated text messages, the manual night before compliance. So if the SMS, if each SDR is sending the SMS, you want to see the compliance that they're actually sending it, and then the actual copy. If it varies across setter to setter, ultimately you should be controlling for this. Right? And then you want to separate cancel from reschedule from no-show, because it's going to tell you a lot about, as well as listening to the setter calls, what variables each individual setter is applying in their calls that's contributing to maybe one of them having a higher reschedule rate, another one having a higher cancel rate, another one having a higher no-show rate, and then whoever's doing better, systemizing that and just essentially getting all of the setters to model the setter with the best data, right? Obviously run the reminder stack exactly, keep messages short, and keep them human. All right, quick pause and then we'll get back to the video. If you do over $1 million a year and you want your sales team to scale predictably, I run one-to-one sales management consulting done with you. You can apply at the link. We onboard a few managers each month, so you can grab a slot and then we'll install your one-to-one system together. Now back to the video. Now in terms of pipeline, filling calendars with real conversations, the lead to booking percentage, the way that you quality control that is through the speed to lead, the pickup rate, the dial per lead, the setter availability, right? How often they're actually in the office as opposed to saying they're at work. And then obviously the date range in the calendar and keeping that under 72 hours. The fix for that is the first contact time, or the speed to lead, wants to be less than 5 minutes, obviously during working hours. And it's a bonus if you can get that in under 60 seconds. It just means that you have a very good setter, essentially working hours to your lead flow. You don't have too many leads for the time that your setters are working, whether that's because you have not enough staffing or your setters aren't actually working. You want to make sure you control for that. As a general rule, a 3 dial per lead, between 2.5 to 3.5 dial per lead, tells you that your setters are managing the lead flow and actually hitting them. When it comes to those dials, you want to front load those attempts to days 1 to 3. So that could be $3 on day 1, $2 on day 2, $2 on day 3, and so on, hitting the legal limit of $7 in 7 days. And that's just, again, that's for you to improve your pickup rate, because if you fall into non-compliance, you're going to see a number health drop drastically, especially if you're already on a Twilio-based phone number, right? You want to book for the same day, next day, or the day after, i.e. the 72 hours. Again, this is going to contribute to the lead to booking rate. Offer sooner times, and then expand the hours and slots. Now, in terms of dial per lead, as I mentioned, to quality control that, you want to ask yourself, are setters hitting the cadence, which is 7 attempts in 7 days? And is the effort being front loaded? As you probably heard that LinkedIn study where like there's a 200% higher chance they're going to pick up if you call them in the first 5 minutes. Well, it still pertains to the first 3 days. Around 91% of pickups come in the first 3 days. So you want to front load those $7 that you have to the first 3 days. And then because there's a legal limit of calling someone 3 times in one day, you want to put $3 on day 1, $2 on day 2, and then $2 on day 3, right? This will keep you compliant if you're not using a software like Dialer.io, right? Fix is enforce the 7 in 7 cadence that I said, front load the attempts to the first 3 days, and then use templates and tabbed workflow to reduce admin drag. Again, if you're using like Close or GHL, just making sure that your sales manager, if you're the sales manager, having a workflow that allows for a low downtime between dials. And it's very easy for the setters to simply refresh a new lead page to improve the speed to lead. Cool. Now, in terms of conversations over 15 seconds and 120 seconds, to quality control that, you want to look at the opener quality, i.e. the short pickups convert to real conversations, because there's a big difference between a pickup and a conversation over 15 seconds. Oftentimes as well, which we'll get into, if you're using certain CRMs and you use the auto data, you're going to see a false, so you're going to get a false sense of security over the pickup rate, because it will register a 1 second connection as a pickup. Whereas if you're tracking the pickup to conversation over 15 seconds, you're going to actually see if these conversations are actually coherent. And the pickup to conversation over 120 seconds is going to tell you if the conversations are actually meaningful. But in terms of these two, you want to fix, make sure you have a tightened opener, you switch to questions that create engagement in the first 10 seconds, and you call in a high pickup per time of day. For most, it's like local time, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then route the hot replies, if they don't pick up, to an instant call and text and call them back. Cool. You want to make sure you get a good call in, confirm in 10 percentage time. So are we calling the leads 10 minutes after booking? You want to fix for that is the 2 to 3 minute confirm and call, offer sooner times or reconfirm, and hot handoff or whatever you call hot transfer is going to improve it as well. In terms of capacity and ops, you want to protect the throughput and the adoption through improving the slot utilization. As I said earlier, targeting an 80 to 90% slot utilization for your closers, which allows, if you can get it above 95, great, but you just need to monitor their ability to manage their admin and their follow-up time, unless you're having your salespeople do that on top. Otherwise, if you look at your working hours, say 10 hours in the day, might be a lot, but say just for general rule, 10 hours in the day, you want them having calls or filled 8 hours out of those days so that they have 10% to conduct follow-up and admin. To quality control that, you want to look at the calendar fill, the buffer slots, warm transfers, and then also misroutes. So if you have, say, a grade 4 lead that was booked in with a bottom closer, you may still give them some, but making sure that was intentional, which we'll get to. The fix for that is the reserve the buffer on top calendars, either top closers. You rebalance the routing weekly, and it's quality controlling whatever system that you have. So if you have a simple Slack channel that you use to every single week update the appointment setters on who the top closers are and how to route, it's not as simple as just set and forget and have that channel. It's very much a case where the sales manager will need to quality control it, because setters won't try and kind of like speak to the prospect and get them to book into a certain time based on their qualification level with the best closer. Obviously, it's going to help improve the show rate if the prospect gets the time that they want, but ultimately you need to manage that these prospects are being booked in with the salesperson appropriately, right? So audit those misroutes and then retrain the setters, as I said. Cool. In terms of ops adoption, it's making changes stick. For example, it's the same thing as I said for that Slack channel, but if you do an end of day form, which is important data for you to make optimizations in future. You want to be monitoring the end of day compliance percentage. And then if you expect, when you implement an SOP, you want to have a 48-hour or 24-hour implementation rate percentage, and then quality controlling that, because it can be trained, it can be measured, it can be improved. You want to pick one metric there to improve, assign one behavior, and then just make sure you manage it, as I said. And then each week by Monday, you can decide if that SOP works to keep it, making sure that it's in your ramping, and every salesperson in the future gets ramped into that. Or if it didn't work, it's just not feasible, then you will revert and manage appropriately. Now, what I'll go over here is the metric cheat sheet. So just the definitions and targets. So with leads, you want to track it raw, inbound, by source. For the lead to booking percentage, that is the booked divided by leads, right? So it's greater than 20% with a less than 5 minute speed and a less than 72-hour window. In terms of speed to lead, which is the minutes to first contact, less than 5 minutes during working hours, and if you can get it under 60 seconds, you just have a really good dial per lead. In terms of dial per lead, that's the dials attempts per lead, obviously. And to manage that, making sure that you have the 7 calls in 7 days, front loading it to the first 3 days. And as I mentioned, a general rule of 2.5 to 3.5 dials is a good balance. It's going to give you that high, smooth dialing cadence with a high pickup rate, right? In terms of your pickup percentage, that's the pickup divided by the dials, right? Not the pickups divided by the leads, which is the contact rate. That the highest when speed to lead is fast and calls are in high pickup windows, as I mentioned, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. as a general rule, is going to give you really the 80-20 of your pickups. If you just actually take the time to backtrack your data and see when your highest pickups are, it would appear to be pretty silly for you to have a 1 hour sales team meeting at like 11 a.m. when 80-20 of your pickups are between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Cool. For conversations over 15 seconds, that's a percentage of pickups that become real conversations. It also accounts for the 1 second connections attributing to the pickup rate. For example, a great CRM, but it's just historically, if you use the auto data in GHL, you'll often see, I've seen it like hundreds of times, where the pickup rate is not true. It's attributing for 1 second connections, which like it might be a pickup, but as far as it pertains to improving it, it's not really a pickup, is it? Right? Cool. And just for context, 1 second connection, assuming you understand it, is just that you have the connection and it drops out. It's like, is that really a pickup rate, right? For conversations over 120 seconds, that's your pickups that become meaningful conversations, right? Which you can kind of attribute to the skill of the salesperson at that point. The show percentage is the shows divided by booked, and you want to look for at least 70% on that front. For the confirm intent percentage, right? It's the bookings confirmed within 10 minutes. Again, that's going to be an 80-20 to the show up. And it's a huge sign of the health of the SDR to closer handoff. In terms of your offer rate, that's the offers divided by the shows. You want to have that over 80%. Your close rate percentage, obviously closes divided by shows, is between 30 and 50%. And then you can go down the route of looking at your pricing being too cheap, anywhere higher than 50%, and really looking at how you can optimize that. Even if your close rate goes down to 10%, if you've sufficiently increased your price enough, you can turn to generating high profit at the end of the month. Cool. In terms of scheduled to close, that's the closes divided by the booked calls. This, for me, other than cash collected per book call, is the single metric I use to judge the skill of a salesperson, right? Not the live call to close rate. The reason for that is it prevents cherry picking and just like salespeople that just like don't take the show rate into their own hands, what we call princess salespeople. The AOV divided by the ACV, or the upfront cash versus the total collected, again tells you a lot about the salesperson. And then the golden metric, which is the cash collected per book call, which is the total cash collected for that salesperson. And then you divide that by the booked calls, and that's the golden metric for rep rank and routing the best leads. So you do the math there, and you can work out that whilst you might have a hero that does 50% close rate and someone else that does 30% close rate, if the person at 50% close rate is either using offer to close and masking their data and saying it's their live call to close, or which I've seen is the salesperson will try as hard as they can to get the prospect to cancel the call so that they don't show up and then hurt their precious data. If you just look off scheduled, right? You go to the source of truth, like the calendar software. You don't use Google Calendar, whatever calendar you're using, because closers can go into that and cancel bookings. If you go to the source of truth, which is the original booking software, whether that's Calendly, OneHub, whatever you use, and using that as your source of truth to judge how many bookings a salesperson had, and then you look at the shows from there. This all sort of gets, it's simple. If you do it that way, this all kind of gets summarized in cash collected per book call, and allows you to see that whilst you might have that hero at 60% and someone else at 40, if the cash collected per book call for some reason is always higher, the money never lies. When you're using the source of truth, you see the cash collected per book call is higher for that 40% closer. You know that when you start biasing either high quality leads, or if you have a back end offer to that closer with the higher cash collected per book call, this is an immediate way to print more money. It's like the easiest way for myself to come in and help a new client immediately ROI in like the first 2 weeks. Cool. In terms of slot utilization, the top closer wants to be at 80 to 90%, as I said, with a 10 to 20% buffer for follow-up and admin. You also want to be tracking your miss routes. So you want to count every single week, and just looking in the channel, you simply just look at your channel that tracks the bookings, and then you should be doing at least a 20% audit every day of the bookings each day, and going in and seeing the grade of that lead to the closer that was booked in. And you'll see almost guaranteed out of the gate when you first implement this, that if you get any higher than like a 70% compliance rate with what the SOP is, then you've got a great team. I'll leave it at that. But most of the time, at first, you'll see that they break the rules about 50% of the time. Cool. And then ops adoption, as I said. So if you have an end of day form that gives you critical data to optimize and improve the sales team, you want to track the compliance percentage with them doing that, and then obviously call it out and retrain appropriately. Same for the 48-hour implementation percentage. That's just for any SOPs. Cool. Now, the resources. So if you want that template to test any of this stuff, it's here. I'll link this document in this video. And if you want any of this installed for your team, you can see how we do it here at the website and check it out. Cool. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video valuable. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I check every single one. And if you're someone who wants speed and real implementation, whether you're a founder, a sales manager, or even a closer who wants to level up, there's links in the description where you can book a call and apply to actually work with me directly. And if you want to keep learning, here's the next video I recommend. You can watch it now.